There we go. It looks more like it. And I believe we're almost live. Okay, we're live. I'm going to roll the intro.
Okay. I'll close OBS down.
And hey there, everybody. It's Chris with Grumpy Roadie, and it's time again for another Wednesday Humpday Hangout with our buddy Steve. And let's bring in Steve here. Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, hanging out. What are you doing?
Oh, I'm just doing shit, getting nowhere, and and maybe making some money, but not that much.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Mostly EI, but whatever the case. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of packing and getting ready to move and kind of get that dealt with, which is not
I
easy,
hear you.
but hey, the things you do in life, right, to make ends meet.
Don't we know it? You think it's a little late now for us to stay in school?
Probably. Like
Yeah.
plus honestly, I think I've learned a lot more in my time after school than in my time in school. But that's
I would.
probably because I spent twice as much of my life after school than I did in school, so
Well,
it's a numbers game.
it's funny, like in our industry, you have the first few years, especially when you're learning new things and stuff like that, the learning curve is pretty steep, right? As you're trying to kind of situate yourself with everything, and you pick up things along the way and stuff. But
Right.
for those of us that never did virtual events really before the pandemic, which really includes myself, uh, that steep learning curve has returned.
Well, but
And
that's kind of fun though, you know what I mean? Having just to deal with new stuff and new scenarios.
Oh, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating a fact for the fact that I was very comfortable, I guess, as far as where I was, and now and then when I got told, hey, come back and do a thing or two here or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, sure, and I get back and it's I was completely out of my element, so to speak, as far as it's like, oh, I've never done any of this before except for actually running the queues.
Yeah.
But as far as the technology behind it and stuff like that, it's I've been going in and out to do stuff for the past, I guess, maybe 3 months or something like that
Right.
now, and yeah, my knowledge base has certainly increased a lot. Uh, but I'm still at that point too, where I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't know enough to be an expert.
Right.
And still picking stuff up along the ways and learning that there's obviously still different situations for different applications as far as how we use the technology for itself.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. There's like any technology, there's a learning curve involved, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
that's and not only for us, but for the development of the technologies as well. You know,
Oh yeah.
you dream up some cool tech in your lab and then you release it into the wild, and then you're just freaking amazed at some of the use cases and applications that people will come up with that you never thought of it. And then you go like, but if they do that, maybe we should, put that feature a little higher on the priority list since, the classic example of that is text messaging. Back in the day when cell phones first started, text messaging was just a side product because they had leftover bandwidth for protocol overhead. And what started out to my understanding is basically a debug channel, the texting thing, ended up becoming one of the most used features in the cellular network. But
Well, I'm not surprised.
initially it was never intended that. It's basically just a side product.
Well, as we know though, as far as new technologies when they come out and the features that they have, sometimes they are able to take on a life of their own, and that's a great example. But there's other things that have started off like that as well. that is now, common day as far as like what we use it for and everything like that, and we don't even give it a second thought. So it's pretty amazing. Like even as far as how far we've come on the internet alone. From something that started off as basically a project that was probably started by the military, to where it's evolved to now. It's pretty amazing to see. Even if you look back and when you think back to when we used to connect via like dial-up modems and stuff like that, as far as what you were waiting for and everything like that, as far as your speeds, and just for the fact that the graphics were back then pretty low resolution in comparison to what we have access to now. And
Right.
because you grow up with it and stuff like that, I would love to talk to myself, that in like say like 1997 and like show them what it looks like now. Just to see my former self, basically the look on my face as if I'm just taking a shit because I can't believe where it is now. You know what I mean? Like
For
it's
sure.
just it's incredible, and it's funny. I was talking with a colleague today when you're saying like it's kind of cool that the internet as a whole is now actually becoming a professional tool of sorts, thanks to virtual conferences and such. The pandemic has kind of focused it that way. So there's been a lot of applications that have come up with updates, everything from WebEx to OBS to Zoom, you name it, and the features that were there 6 months ago in comparison to now, the additions and stuff like that are pretty significant when you look at it,
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
and it just keeps getting easier as far as that's concerned. It's just too bad that other platforms, when you compare, apples to apples and such, haven't caught up on certain things. Like the one that I found out today, or not today, but in the past week, was Microsoft Teams. Now, overall, pretty good product as far as what you can do with it and everything like that. Not crazy about, if you have to, basically size everything as far as your pips and stuff like that to be able to get rid of any external stuff on the screen. It ends up being more letterboxed than anything because there's so much stuff to cut out to make it look like a proper camera shot, like what you see on yourself and me right now.
Right.
But the other problem is that for whatever reason, there's no setting in the audio part to basically take off like the auto level, so to speak. So everything kind of ducks, which is really, really weird. And
Yeah.
we looked online, and if anyone's watching this and has a solution to this, I'd love to hear it because I looked on the web board chats and stuff like that, and basically Microsoft has not offered a solution to do it as far as to get rid of it. Whereas something like that is more readily accessible in applications like Zoom and WebEx and so on and so forth.
Right.
So so you could actually hear it when you were listening back, as far as it kind of just like pushing it down and stuff. It was very odd, and and as an audio guy, it's a little bit uncomfortable because it just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It when you hear that much compression, it just kind of,
It
it's like hitting a
irks
nerve.
you.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, what the fuck is that? So yeah, but and OBS too, came out with some good updates as well. Which is what I've been operating the past week. As far as just finding your sources easier, as far as connecting them, and
Yeah. No,
that and
like,
the
I mean, we're using OBS right now, and I find it kind of
yeah.
nice. There's a few things that I wish they had built in that I'm using plugins and scripts for, and
Yes,
that makes it a little buggy because on reboot, some of those scripts need to be initialized again manually.
I found
But
that with the timer. Like if you want a visual timer, as
yeah,
far as like that you can get like as an add-on for OBS, not just like I saw someone in my office actually just decide to grab a something they saw online and then basically just size it in a pip and overlay it, and that's fine, right? But
yeah,
as far as the actual add to the to OBS itself, it's a little bit convoluted to get to it, but it looks really nice when you do.
yeah,
And but the biggest thing for us on a production end is just the fact that now you can actually see a countdown timer on videos. That's a major one because for whatever reason, I don't know why, and I don't know if you've experienced this or not, but if you use Playback Pro at all off Mac, for whatever
yeah.
reason, it's a good program otherwise for live shows and stuff. But as far as how it interacts with OBS, it doesn't like it so much. As far as just for what you need to do it with, it doesn't like the resolutions or something like that. And
Yeah. Well, I
so
mean,
we stopped using it for
well,
a
you
while
don't really
because
need it because you can play the files directly within OBS.
yes, and that's fine and everything. But once again, OBS didn't have a countdown timer before, as far as on the sources that you were playing back,
Right.
as far as the videos. Now it does, which is awesome. You
Yeah.
know, and
Important
you know that
feature. Very important
yeah,
feature.
definitely. It's so strange that the two things I just mentioned right there had something to do with time.
Yeah.
You know, like it,
You know what a feature that I missed that I'm using a filter for
what's
is
that?
the downstream keyer that I'm using for our Humpday Hangout thing here.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And it's basically it's a script
Hmm.
that I have to, when I start it up, launch the script, and in the script configuration there's a button that allows me to toggle the DSK on and off.
Right.
But I don't have that button anywhere on my interface, so I have to define a hotkey for that.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
Which
that could be a.
yeah,
eh, I
which
get it.
kind of gets annoying, and especially because I have to do that every time I start it up again. I have to re-specify that hotkey.
Yes. Yeah, that's one thing that I have found doesn't always transfer over. That's a bit unfortunate, but hey. So my headache was going between Microsoft Teams and another application called Blue Jeans, as
Yeah,
far as what I was sizing and stuff. And oh my god, like the difference between the two was pretty big as far as what you had to crop out and what you didn't have to crop out. To the point where I basically had to reprogram almost all my pips from one day to the next, or whatever. And
that
yeah, it's
sucks.
yeah, I mean it is what it is, and it's not. It's just a little bit time consuming more than anything. I guess I'm just bitching because I can bitch, you know.
Yeah, no, fair
So
enough.
you know, but yeah, just as far as all that's concerned, and the one thing that I've had to test this week, which I'm sure some of our viewers has had some experience with, is translation with remote presenters via Zoom, and that has been kind of cool, very cool, as a matter of fact. So this production that I have coming up has two remote presenters, and you know they're doing English to French, French to English, as far
Right,
as the channels. And but the other part of that is that we have to send, even though those are remote, we have to send then French playback, like basically an English and a French video are going to play at the same time, except one has a French track and the other one has an English track, right? As far as for the audio, as far as figuring out how to get that down. And so I realized, oh, okay, I can add another interpreter or whatever to just do, you know, English to French or whatever, and just run
right.
it down that and just keep the microphone open. Because I'm thinking to myself before, it's like, crap, how am I going to do this? You know, and I didn't realize that Zoom would allow me to do this. So that was kind of cool to find out, because I'm like, unless the participant is actually in the room, I'd have to like basically like share audio or whatever to be able to do it, and that would be horrendous. And then I realized, oh, you can just do it this way or whatever, and you know, Bob's your uncle. You just have to, you know, maybe just coordinate a bit as far as muting and unmuting. It's like, oh
True.
man, you know, it's amazing. And so that's the other thing too. I find. Sorry, I'm going on about all this stuff, but you know, is that now you know, it's like we have a tendency to either not think enough or really overthink what we're doing now for productions.
Well, yeah,
And
a lot of time I feel like the overthinking is a very common phenomenon these days.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
totally.
because sometimes it's a lot easier to do it straightforward than, than doing it the complicated way. Like I did a show last week where I kind of ended up getting shanghaied and being a media server op, where I originally was supposed to be LED tech, but hey, things come out differently than you expect. And I ended up having to learn a brand new video server software that I never worked with before. And it was surprisingly intuitive. It took me like all of 15 minutes to figure out the basics, and I was building a show.
Yeah,
So, but like the entire event was a very complex show that was being called remotely from the US with like the studio and the talent here locally in Canada, as well
yeah,
as all the techs in Canada. And it was pretty tricky, like with the communications, because there's obviously a slight lag going to LA and back You
Yeah,
know,
of course.
with the comms and everything going through the internet. You know, limited bandwidth. Everybody's sharing bandwidth, and there was, let's say,
Yeah.
there's a lot of challenges with doing something like that, and there's a lot of a big learning curve involved for everybody. You know, for the techs, for the manufacturers, for the production companies. You know, everybody in the chain has to do their part, basically, to well, to learn what the best use of this technology is. You know,
Yeah. So if I
sometimes
may,
sometimes the simplest solution is the one straightforward. You know.
could I ask a question about your event?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to answer it, but we'll see. Because there
Well,
is.
no, 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 no. It's very generic, but I take it that because of the scenario of the show caller being in the States and the production crew being in Canada, and obviously one not being able to travel to the other because of quarantine rules and stuff like that. I safely assume that you had like presenters or talent on stage in Toronto?
We did have, yeah, the host, who was a big A-list actor from Hollywood, was on stage in Toronto in the studio,
Gotcha, gotcha.
and
Okay.
he had like it was a fundraiser, I think I can say that, and there were people like calling in, you know, donators calling in by phone, Zoom calls, and those kind of things, interviews, basically on-screen interviews with different guests.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's great, that we're trying these things and
Yeah,
everything, and I can't wait to see where the industry goes in the next 5 years, as far as where we are right now to where we're going to be. Just based on the fact that, like, if anything, the pandemic has been good for. Not that I wanted the pandemic, nobody did, but it certainly forced the hand of a lot of developers to be able to make this shit functional. As
yeah,
far
well,
as
it's true because and like it's always a case with the supply and demand, right? Suddenly there is a huge
absolutely.
demand, so obviously now it's up to the suppliers to step up their game and kind of bring it up to par.
Hey, if we all had a crystal ball, you don't think any of us wouldn't have bought shares in Zoom just before the pandemic? I mean, come on,
Well, it depends
like.
on when I would have gotten that crystal ball. Like
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
given if I got it early enough, I'd now be a majority shareholder of Google and Facebook.
Yeah,
You
true
know
enough.
what I mean? But obviously, I'm not. I can barely pay for my internet bill to get to Google or Facebook. So,
Yeah, well, baby steps, man.
hey,
Baby
yeah,
steps.
exactly. Like when I grow up, I'll be able to do that, right?
Oh, okay. So you're older than me, and you still haven't grown up.
No, see, the trick is, and somebody told me once, if you don't grow up by 50, you don't have to grow up at all, which means I'm now home.
Ah.
I'm home free, motherfucker. Like I don't have to grow up.
Oh
I'm
man.
done.
Well, that's great because, like I just said, where the technology is going to be in 5 years,
Yeah.
and in 5 years I'm 50, so I'm I have I've got a plan in place now. This is amazing.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I'm done with this adulting thing. You know, I put in my time. It's like I'm good.
I hear you. And that's the thing is that it's been pretty amazing to just see how everything has been affected from our all everything that's happened. If you're in the Toronto area, you already know that we've gone back to stage two as far as with the pandemic, and so been a few things that have closed and such to try and limit the numbers because the numbers are pretty fairly high for us. Maybe not for a an American state, but certainly pretty high for us, and it seems to be in a lot of different provinces.
Yeah, that's very true, I guess.
So to the point where we're doing these events in a lot of warehouse spaces and stuff like that are now kind of almost in a way being deemed public spaces now. It's like a lot of the production companies are becoming venues in a
Well,
way.
they're becoming
You know?
publicly accessible spaces, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and so of course with that, because it's all brand new and stuff like that, there's a lot of lines that are not clearly defined. You know what I mean? As far as like what
Because
you
it's
can
all
get
brand
away
new and
with
stuff
and
like
what's
that.
considered like a workplace versus like a public space and
Right.
stuff. Like it's and and you keep looking for more and more information and stuff, but there's not a lot out there. At least from what I've been trying to find out, and where I am, we've taken certain steps and everything. That's for sure. As far as sign-in sheets, which I know, like restaurants, were taking people's names and phone numbers and such to try and track stuff back. Should there be an infection or anything like that,
Oh
reported
yeah.
back to the establishment.
We had a
So,
big COVID protocol happening this week. Like every morning, like before we even got started, 2 days before, we all had to come in for a test,
oh
get
yeah,
tested, and
like
then
was that a temperature gauge test or what
no,
was that?
actually a real swab test.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Wow.
that was like 2 days before we even started the prep at the shop. Everybody had to kind of get a test, and then
Okay.
on the first day of load-in, no, on the second day of load-in, we got another one, which would then be 48 hours before show day, when talent and everybody else showed up, right?
Understandable.
And
See,
every day upon arrival, we had to go through the questionnaire, got to get a temperature screening, and all that. We had extremely hardcore traffic pattern and restrictions in the building, like where you could go, and like literally, if you wanted to go from this space, you had to go out the door, walk around the building, and come into that door because it was a one-way street kind of thing, right?
huh?
It
Interesting.
got to the point of, in some cases, being ridiculous, you know. But
But I
everybody
guess there's
had
a reason
like,
why it's all there.
yeah, no, exactly. And everybody had their assigned zones, that they're not supposed to leave or not supposed to cross into other zones. That's why traffic patterns were laid out accordingly so they wouldn't have to intersect.
Gotcha.
But obviously, quite often during the initial build, there was a lot of crossing over that had to be.
Of
So
course.
we kind of waived that to some extent during load in. But then during the actual production and rehearsal days, like very strict, we had basically what we called COVID cops on site, right? Two people
Huh.
that basically say, "Yeah, no, sorry, you can't go through there. You got to go this way."
No difference than a security guard, I guess, really, at
No,
a
well,
venue.
exactly. They're basically just directing traffic, and most people, were fine with it. It's just like because you're just mindlessly walking towards the exit because it's like the loading dock. But oh no, yeah, you can't
Yep.
go through there. Oh yeah, I forgot. I got to go out that door. So
Interesting.
yeah, so that was a lot of that going on. Uh, yeah, meals were served outside, and tables like 2 6-foot tables put end to end, and one person on each end of the table.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha.
So
That that's gonna be interesting when it get. I mean, it is starting to get colder now. So
yeah.
as far as how that's going to play out in the winter months
Well, they also
and
had an
such.
indoor dining room with basically plexiglass shielding on 3 sides of each sitting position.
Wow. Now that's
W-
impressive.
Yeah, but with a very limited number of seats. I think only 16 people at a time in the room. So and normally you'd probably seat about 30 to 50 people in a room like that if you had a normal cafeteria kind of situation.
Wow. Well, it sounds
So
like a fairly large room then, by the
yeah,
sounds
it,
of it, as
it
far as that's concerned.
was okay. Like so, basically they did really really good job with all the safety measures, and yeah, I think it. We all kind of realized that there is a way to work, at least for certain types of events with certain restrictions and limitations, of course.
Yeah.
But you can still kind of do a show essentially. Even there's no
Well,
audience there, but
the neatest COVID protocol that I saw in the past couple weeks, I was sent to do a production house to basically set up and monitor some translation stuff that was being used on site that particular client needed to rent. So I went and I set it all up and all that kind of stuff. But so like a lot of places, when you go into an entrance, there's a sheet that you got to fill out as far as all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at it, and one of the things on the form is, "What is your temperature?" And I'm like, "How the fuck am I going to know what my temperature is, right?" And so that kind of perplexed me a bit. But as I
right,
went in, I'm like, okay, well, I should probably sanitize my hands, right? Because there just wasn't clear signage to what was about to happen. Which I held my hand out, got the sanitizer, and at that time, there was a digital display on the actual dispenser that actually said what my temperature was, and I thought, oh,
Wow.
that's kind of interesting, but it led me to think, is it for show, or how accurate would something like that actually be? You know. So it was neat though. I'd never held my hand out to get hand sanitizer and have my temperature read at the same time. It was very, very odd.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So, like I said, I have no idea what the accuracy would be, but I guess you got to wonder too, like if somebody comes back on you, if you're a business owner, for something like that, even though you've taken all these precautions and stuff like that, and you say, well, hey, that way of measuring temperature is not valid. Like
Right.
what legal implications that would mean for the owner, because once again, like we're in such a state of new affairs that there isn't like legislation written for most of this. It's it's going to be once again just like what we've been doing for the past 6 or 7 months. We figure it out as we go. It's
Very
not
true. Yeah.
unless, well, admittedly, I don't have a great grasp as far as all the laws that we have in this country and everything, but that I would think that would just be another section that maybe existed in a different format before the pandemic, and whether that translates over or not to what we have now is a big question, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, there's been a lot of actions for the event industry. A lot of people have done stuff. We had the light up the night kind of thing around the world. People have been trying to raise awareness because the problem is still the general public still doesn't know what we do, that we exist, and how important we actually are to their daily lives. Because it's our job to be invisible, right? So
Yep.
it's not a surprise. It's
It's
absolutely.
almost like that in itself has come back to bite us a bit, as
Well,
far
yeah,
as that's concerned.
of course
And
it does. Yeah, and that's the thing. So there is a lot of work to be done before we can expect people to realize. People all already know that they miss going to concerts or the theater, or the ballet or what have you not, right?
hmm
They're feeling that every day. But they don't know, how many people it takes behind the scenes to make that happen that are feeling it even more than them. You
that's
know?
very true. Yeah, a friend of mine was talking with me earlier today and had a prediction. I was kind of saying over these past few months, like we can predict all we want to about certain things, but I don't hold on to my predictions too much these days because
Yeah.
we just don't know. But his prediction, which I thought was kind of interesting, was when there's a vaccine and things start to return back to normal, that first year or maybe 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a massive run of companies deciding to do actual live Christmas parties. As far as a reason why we can actually all get together and in the same space and celebrate and stuff like that. And I thought about it. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I mean, let's face it. Leading up to where we are right now, would you honestly log on to a virtual Christmas party? I mean, I'm sorry. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah, what's the point?
like like
I mean, there's a lot of things, you can do very efficient virtually. You can have meetings and conversations and chat like we're doing right now.
yeah,
But a party needs, personal interactions and all that. It's like, sure, we can both sit here and drink, for example, and smoke and whatever, and tell jokes, but that still doesn't constitute a party.
yeah, you can't pass me the roach clip through the fucking internet.
For example, right? I'm sure there's
you
an
know,
emoji for that, but
if
it's
not,
it's
there
it's
there
not.
should be one invented right now.
Yeah.
And if not, then you should trademark that shit.
Do you hear that, emoji designers? You heard it here.
Oh
My
man.
my idea.
Yeah,
The roach clip
that's right.
emoji.
TM Chris Mills. So yeah, we were talking before about there's another idea as far as just try and get the more recognition for the industry. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of people, talking like, what else can we do? We lit up all these venues, all over the country, and it did get a little bit of traction, but not a lot has happened, and like there's this idea with dumping a whole bunch of cases on some square at Queen's Park or in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, that's a nice idea, but like, what if we kind of, let's say, take Toronto, we unload a whole bunch of cases at Queen's Park, set them up nicely spaced, and when they tell us that we have to move, that we can't put them there, then we'll gently push them down the street to City Hall, in a nice convoy, decently, properly, safely spaced, Every 15, 20 feet, one person with a case, wearing high vis, and all that, so we're not a problem and safe in traffic and all that. Maybe have somebody with a flag walk in front and back. Not a problem at all.
It needs to be music too. Like even if it's just, blared over a speaker or something like that. Just something to give to energize those that are participating in it.
Marching chants.
Sure.
Drum on the flight cases and have like marching chants.
Yeah, you absolutely could do that. Just anything to keep up the enthusiasm of the cause we're trying to promote.
It's like, hell no, we make the show.
Once again, you heard it here, folks. TM Chris Mills.
I'm just a wellspring of stupid ideas these days.
You got too much time on your hands, man.
Not really, actually. Like, this move is just kind of keeping me pretty busy trying to get this craziness all packed up. And like, this is actually the last show I'll be doing with this rig. The next week I might have to run off my laptop, so that'll be interesting. Because after tonight I'm packing up this setup, and so.
Well, who knows? Maybe I can borrow some other equipment, so to speak, and we can do the show elsewhere if needed. So I'll have to see. I don't even, it's so funny. Like before, we used to look ahead and say, "Oh yeah, I know my schedule." Like at least 2 weeks in advance and stuff like that for the most part. And now it's like, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. I got added to a show this morning for tomorrow.
Nice.
It just happened to be that somebody said, "Hey, I can't get a babysitter for my kids fast enough." So they're like, "Can you mind doing this?" I'm like, "Okay, sure, yeah."
Why not? Yeah. Oh, it's not a problem, right?
Yeah, it's like, all right, sure. What am I doing? Oh, I haven't done that before. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. So the learning just continues as far as that's concerned. But I think it's good though that people are talking about trying to get more attention to our industry again. I mean, Light Up Live and everything like that was over a month ago now, right? And so I mean, that's the thing, is that there's a lot of things I think in society right now that are being forgotten in different sectors, all across what we do, whether it's entertainment or say within education. Certain kids are not getting what they need and get left behind, so to speak, maybe because they have their developmentally delayed or anything like that. It's everywhere as far as that's concerned. There's always somebody that is going to be shortchanged. And,
for sure.
So, and I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody's trying to do what they can to try and stabilize things as best as they can. But unfortunately, just because, we just haven't been in this position before. So of course, there are going to be significant amount of people that fall through the cracks somehow. And, God knows that, we're kind of in that situation ourselves, because it's just not one of those things that is thought about as much unless you actually have tickets to go see something, or that you have to go to a conference or whatever the case, So,
right.
But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I know you don't follow sports much, but the NHL is talking about what they're hoping to do as far as for the next season coming up, which they're thinking will probably start in early January. as far as doing hubs and stuff like that, to the point where because of the quarantine laws here in Canada, they're talking about forming a Canadian league, which is a
Really?
little bit strange. Yeah. So and it's just like, oh man, really? Like, don't get me wrong, it's kind of a neat passing idea, but at the same time, certain rivalries and stuff like that, which the fan bases have built up over the years and stuff like that, will be sorely missed as a result. You know, so but yeah, I don't know what they're going to do as far as that's concerned. I understand why they chose Canada, though, as far as when they did reopen up, as far as having two different hubs, and they had really good success with that. But I don't see it that they'd be able to even travel from city to city, to be quite honest, depending on where there's hotspots with the virus, if there's no vaccine,
Well,
whether it's in Canada or the U.S. for that matter.
yeah, I mean, there will come a time, when vaccines are available, and there still
Absolutely,
need to be safety precautions in place, because not everybody will be vaccinated yet, and so,
absolutely,
and the veracity of the vaccines might not be 100%, reliable and all that kind of stuff. So obviously, there's going to be a time, where stuff will happen and travel will be allowed, providing you have your vaccinations and all that kind of stuff. So there'll be kind of like a halfway in between. Like I don't think we'll ever completely get back to the normal that we had before, not fully,
yeah.
but
No, I agree. I agree with you.
I think there will be several stages or steps going back that way.
Let me ask you this question: if you were offered to go work on an event, say next week, down in the U.S., knowing full well that let's just say it's like a 5-day event or something like that, and knowing full well that when you came back to Canada, that you would have to quarantine for 14 days, and that you probably couldn't work as a result, would you consider doing it or not?
Well, that would depend because technically I'd have to include those 14 days as
That's right.
time work because I'm not available for other shows during that period.
Well,
They're
let's just
basic.
say with the standard rate of pay that you would normally get.
Well, they would basically be travel days,
Yeah,
right? You'd have five
exactly.
show days and 14 travel days or 15 travel days.
But
But that would
how would you feel about your personal safety though, as far as going down there right now? Should you want to? Should you get the
well,
opportunity to work an event?
let me put it this way. I think given what we do and that I basically have the right to refuse unsafe work. Right, I can either ensure that I go around about what I do with the proper safety precautions to protect myself and the people I'm have to be in contact with working wise. Right, I can do my due diligence there, and if they're trying to put me in a position where I can no longer control the safety scenario, then I will call, I will pull the emergency brake just like I would with any other safety concern. If they ask me to walk out on the stage and I know damn well the rig is faulty, I know it's like just the slightest blast of wind will knock it down. And, at some point I say, no, I can't be a part of that. Right? For safety reasons, I got to call no. And the same thing would go with like health, any kind of health and safety issue, right? And an infectious risk is just as much a health and safety issue as like I don't know a leaky waste gas pipe under the catwalk, or
So I'm getting the feeling that this would not, and I'm not that I was looking for it. It's not a simple yes or no answer, quite obviously,
there can't
because
be.
there's a lot of factors involved.
Well, see,
Like personally, for
the thing is, a yes or no answer in this kind of context would require absolutes. I mean,
absolutely,
yeah, and
yep.
we know only Sith deals in absolutes, right? So, but
Personally, for me, like if I was in that situation that I just presented to you, I would still not take it. And that's because I've got somebody at home that I would not want to possibly infect should I happen to be only contract the virus as, say, just a carrier.
Yeah, but
And
again,
be,
you
be
you could do your
asymptomatic.
due diligence and plan for that, like by having that 2 week quarantine and then getting a test, before you return to your family. You could totally
Yeah,
do that and
true.
ensure that that's not a problem. The question is, at the end of the day, would an employer be willing to pay for the cost of all that extra, health and
I
safety
don't think
costs?
personally. I don't think so.
That's
I don't
and but
think
that
so.
and that's the point. Like if they were willing to do that, say like, yeah, okay, so it's 15 travel days, 4 show days. I'd be fine with doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if they were willing to do that, that means that certainly they would definitely very much want you if that's the case. And because obviously it's something that we've both run into as far as working in the U.S. as far as when you go through customs and everything like that, the kind of procedure of how you present yourself and everything like that
Of
in a
course.
way that it doesn't look like you're the way that the border services view it, that you're not taking a position away from an American,
Right.
right? So I would imagine that in that particular scenario, you'd be very, very, very sought after, and so you'd be looked upon as somebody entering the country with a very specific set of specialized skills.
I
That
have a very specific set of skills,
I was thinking of that as
and
soon
I
as I
will
said it
find
too,
you.
and I will tech you.
Yeah. And I will make you look good on screen.
Oh my god! Out of all the movies that I've watched or whatever since I've been in quarantine and stuff like that, I did that. That was one series I never went back to.
Yeah. I'll bet you that movie's got to have, or at least that scene has got to hold some kind of record for the most memed movie clip.
Oh yeah, it's definitely up there.
You know,
That's
it's
for sure.
yeah, it's definitely in the running because that is like so many times I've seen that. Like,
If anything, since it's October, I've just been going through all sorts of Halloween movies and stuff like that. Since
nice.
horror movies are one of my favorites and
Yeah.
definitely one of my wife's favorites. So yeah, it's been one movie after another. So
Oh,
and
that's cool.
who only knows what the next one is. We went through the entire Friday the 13th series about a month ago.
No, I'm saving up all my movie watching endorphins for the Mandalorian.
Yeah, yeah. I know you've been very excited for
Two
that.
more days,
So
but 2 more days,
2 more days. Wow.
and then the next season. This is gonna be so good.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. Some of the things that have come out
Well, like
and
the
have been fun to watch
Mandalorian
too.
specifically, right, is like the best the best Star Wars, since basically the original. Like it feels the truest Star Warsy, because it goes back to what George Lucas originally based his inspiration on. The samurai, the rogue warrior kind of feeling, right? That was basically his motivation, inspiration for the original Star Wars movies. And
Well,
and so Mandalorian's basically come full circle and basically turns it into a spaghetti western in space.
I gotta get off my ass and watch that. I've got access to the platform to watch it. I just haven't done it. That's not
You,
because I haven't been interested. I just
damn,
haven't done it yet. I don't
hurry
know.
up!
I know. I'm just being lazy.
You
So
have you have 2 days to catch up.
Oh yeah, because I got nothing better to do.
There is nothing better to do.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't been a fan of a lot of the Star Wars stuff in recent years, personally.
Well,
But
that's what I mean. That's why you need to watch The Mandalorian. It's different. It's old school again.
hey,
It's
Jon Favreau, just period, as far as what he has done more behind the camera than in front of the camera for like the Marvel universe
hell yeah.
and Star Wars as well. I just watched. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Have you ever watched the David Letterman show that they have where it's just basically him and a guest like in a couple of tub chairs just on in a
Yeah,
theater. I
yeah, I
can't
know
remember.
the show you mean.
Yeah, so Robert Downey Jr. is on the latest one or whatever, and they're just talking about the beginnings of it and how the Marvel universe really took off after he played Iron Man
Yeah, well,
and
that's
stuff.
it.
And it was very cool.
Favreau was the one who basically started off the MCU with that movie.
Absolutely. So that was getting to my point. And
Yeah.
it's been great that he's been involved and everything like that. And I know he did the first two Iron Man movies and then moved on from there. But so like, damn, like the guy's got some talent.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen. He also has a cooking show as well that he does with another like kind
Yeah,
of celebrity chef
I
thing.
haven't seen that yet. I've been meaning to watch it. I've heard good things about it. I'm not usually a foodie when it comes to cooking shows, stuff like that. But this one I will have to check out because Favreau is awesome. There is
It's
like
pretty cool.
there's like
Yeah.
a great documentary on Disney Plus about the making of the Mandalorian, where
Mm.
Favreau and Filoni, by the way, the co-god of Star Wars, like those two guys, literally, they should give them the entire franchise and let them run with it.
That'd be great if they did.
Yeah, because
Um,
those like Filoni, the amount of Star Wars lore that this guy knows, the level of understanding, it's like it comes from God to Lucas to Filoni. That's the way Star Wars knowledge is passed down these days.
that's
He's
pretty
like
awesome.
he's literally the one that everybody else turns to, including Favreau, when it comes to understanding what Star Wars is about and the history and all that.
Well, you gotta give respect where respect is due, as far as
Yeah,
trying to pay homage and keep to the original kind of beliefs and structure of what it was. And by the way, I don't know if you know how Favreau got into that cooking show, but if you've ever seen the movie Chef that he's in, that's really good too.
yeah.
Very very cool movie and definitely worth a watch. Um, and I was going to mention one other thing. What the fuck was it? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you were not a big fan of the Star Wars prequels, like episodes 1 through 3. Would I
Well,
be correct in saying that?
one through three, I didn't really mind. They were a little too Disney for me, like too much lovey-dovey, too much
Right.
emphasis on the love story and the whole family thing and whatever. But I was able to deal with it. Like it was still bearable to me, right? It was
Okay. Well,
it was pushing it in some extents, but I was still okay with it because overall it filled in a lot of the story blanks leading up to my beloved Star Wars. You know what I mean?
I get
So
that. I get that. However, if there's any animosity within you as far as anything to do with those Star Wars prequels or anything like that, which there are for some people, I highly suggest if you don't know it already, check out on YouTube. Go to Patton Oswald, and he does an entire section of his comedy act, basically entitled "I would kill George Lucas with a shovel if I went back in time." Whatever, and
uh,
it's definitely worth a listen. That's for
I'll
sure.
check it out. Patton Oswalt's pretty funny, so
Oh, he's a funny dude, man.
it's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
pretty good. Yeah,
Oh yeah. So it's one of those ones that once you hear it, you'll always hear it in your head when you're watching certain things.
right.
So yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite comedians by far.
Hey,
So
we got some people in the chat. I just noticed.
hey, we do. That's awesome. So what's everyone saying?
Let me just open up the YouTube here. Jonathan Chalmers on there, and my nephew Tristan.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, cool.
Let me respond
Well,
here.
Well, John, first and foremost, I just want to say great job on Chris's guitar. Holy shit.
That
I
thing
saw it. I saw
looks
the pictures that he
promising,
put it.
didn't it? Yeah.
Oh my God. I gotta say, like, I'm coming to your place when you finally get it because I want to fucking play that thing. That looks awesome.
I know, like
It's
I can't
oh
wait. He's
my
like,
God.
you should have seen it beforehand. It was literally just a body and a neck that I found in the garbage that somebody had thrown out. And as
Oh
I was
man.
walking out to take out the garbage, to see that guitar is leaning there, I picked it up. Looked at the body, it looked solid. Looked at the neck up and down, looked pretty straight. And I'm like, huh. I'll take that in and give it to somebody who knows what they're doing and see if it's worth saving, and if they can kind of make it work. And I look at that picture, I'm going like, holy crap, that thing is gorgeous.
No kidding,
It's
right?
like if it sounds half as good as it looks, I'll be quite impressed actually.
Yeah. What a great piece of work. I mean, John's been doing that for forever, right? And
Yeah.
so to see some of his stuff online and some of the things that he's created. I don't know if you've seen his shovel guitars too.
I've
That's
I've seen
like,
some. Yeah, I've seen pictures of
man,
it. I haven't seen him live, but I've seen pictures of him. Yeah.
yeah, I haven't seen it in person either, but man, very, very cool stuff. And yeah. So, but I'm glad to see that we're getting some chat. That's always good to see. And John is saying looks like CCR has gone fully online with their work. Well, yeah, you'd be right about that. But you do what you got to do to survive. And
Right.
unfortunately, like we talked about on this program already before, there's been companies that have been going under, and so. But I mean, just because you're making money at online events doesn't mean that you're making what you need to be making.
Well, that's it,
You
right?
know,
Not necessarily be
you're,
breaking even.
it's survival mode. I mean, there's almost so much you can charge for the equipment, and then like the really where the money is at this point, which is not discountable, is the labor. Is what it really boils down to, especially when you
Yeah.
have installations and stuff like that. So hey, companies that are able to make it work and keep us still working at in any way, fantastic. Not every company has the bandwidth to do it. Every company's position is different, and for me, I just feel incredibly lucky to even be doing what I'm doing now as a pair in comparison to what I was doing 5 months ago. Just wondering if I would even get a call back or anything like that from anywhere. It's pretty depressing when you give an application into Best Buy and they say no. I don't think so. It's pretty deflating to say the least. And the only callback I ever got from any of the other jobs that I applied for, tech and otherwise, was like driving truck for the brick. It's
Right.
just yeah. Needless to say, it's pretty deflating. From something that you do well in to basically just trying to find something to be able to survive. And I'm very lucky in comparison to a lot. And I certainly think about all the people I haven't seen as far as my freelance family and stuff like that since this has happened. And I just hope that everyone's doing okay, and doing what they have to do to get by. And hey, just remember, any of those of you that are in Canada, that it's just that much harder for our tech brothers and sisters in the U.S. that aren't getting nearly as much financial support from their governments as we are. Not to make light of what everybody is going through here, but always good to remember that it could be a little bit worse. As far as that's concerned, and just hope everyone's just keeping healthy and safe out there more than anything.
Yeah.
He
Well, that's
coughs.
the thing, right?
So,
Okay. I'm
but
just. Yeah, I was just looking. My nephew from Germany is online right now. He's actually he was mentioning that in Germany, a lot of the artists stepped up and spoke up uh,
yeah,
for the entertainment industry, right?
yeah, and that's not something I've seen much in North America, as far as that's concerned. As far as artists and such, kind of speaking out to that. I did an event last week with a highly renowned recording artist who I'm not going to mention because for legal reasons and everything. And
Right.
basically, yeah, like she talked about her crew and stuff like that, and it's all nice, but that was for a private event, and that's all well and good, but once again, that's not getting the message out there to the masses, and it makes me wonder too, like, hey, where are our artists that have done well on the backs of these people that have put on great productions for years, and where are they right now? Why aren't we hearing more from these people? You know, I think your cousin has a great point. You know, because it's not just a Germany thing. It should be a world thing as far as that's concerned. You know, if we can't rely on each other to do that, then it's once again it's just very disappointing as far as the lack of loyalty.
Yeah, yeah. Tristan was just mentioning that in Berlin, like big acts like Herbert Grönemeyer, who's basically somebody who you could compare to, like, I don't know, a Bruce Springsteen or a Brian Adams. You know, that kind of a that
David
kind of a
Hasselhoff.
that kind no that kind of a national, relevance, basically culturally speaking.
Yeah, yeah.
Like one of the big ones for the country, kind of thing. And he held like an entire speech in in Berlin and stuff like that, on behalf of entertainment crews and technicians and venue staff and all that.
Yeah,
Was
I don't get it, but as far as why it's happening there, and like, okay, granted, Europe has always been known more as a continent that appreciates the arts more as a whole, right? But still, you know, the
mm,
amount of money that's made in the entertainment industry alone, in North America, it's mind-boggling,
that is
and
true, but that's the thing because North Americans focus on the business side. That's why it's
yeah,
show business, right? It's all about
yeah, you're right.
making money. It's not as much about the art in itself as it is traditionally in or historically, I should say, in some of the European cultures. Where the pursuit of the art is rises above mere pecuniary kind of aspects.
That's where I wish that North America would take a page out of the European handbook. It's so funny. So getting back to movies just for a quick second, when you look at actors and actresses that are very prevalent right now, or you see their performances and you're like, God damn, man, that person is really talented and stuff like that. I don't know about you, but I'm finding that 9 times out of 10, they're not from Canada or the US. They're from usually Britain, or they are, from another part of Europe or anything like that. And which I think speaks to the whole idea of they take a great pride in the craft and everything, and it's not all about the money and stuff like that as far as that's
Yeah,
concerned. But
that's true. Like
uh,
you
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 know,
said a key word there. Take pride in your craft. That is something
yeah,
that is so much more culturally ingrained in the old world cultures. Let's say, like take like Germans and Japanese take it to the extreme. With that pride in their craft to the point being anal and perfectionist about it,
of course,
which
of course.
yields amazingly great results, right? No doubt. But again, there's different approaches to it, right? But just
Just
the,
the
the
different interpretations.
yeah, but you'll never hear them say, "Oh, that's good enough. Let's go home and watch the game," or something like that. That's just not.
Yeah,
You just don't do that. You either do your job right or you don't do it at all. Why bother
yeah,
if you're not going to do it right?
yeah. I mean, it's funny. The same thing also goes for those that are writing these movies and shows. I mean, how many times in the last 10 to 15 years have we seen a show that originally came from Britain that's come over to America to become something popular, right? But then when you look at the British original and you realize, holy crap, is this ever way better than what's on the American network right now?
Yeah, yeah. Usually the
It's
American
mind-boggling.
Usually, American remakes of European shows or movies ends up pretty bad. It
Yeah,
probably makes shitloads of money in Hollywood, more than the original movie did. But the original movie or series is usually much, much better. Usually a lot more intelligent, witty, goes a little deeper. It's basically what Americans do really well for the sake of business is basically shave art down to the form where they can easiest market it. Like basically they
yep,
dumb it down to the lowest common denominator so they can target the largest possible audience or market,
yep,
right? And
I
that's
agree.
and that kind of approach to anything, you can see it in anywhere. You can see it in sports. They take rugby and turn it into football. You know,
Hmm.
they take
Yeah.
European motorsport road racing and reduce it into either going around in circles, in NASCAR, or running in a quarter of a mile and then stopping. Like it's like, yeah, that's two very important elements of racing, but that's not the whole thing. It's again, they've dumbed it down, reduced it to digestible chunks.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
it's it's too bad because if you're willing to invest the time in seeing some of these other movies, and it goes down to productions and everything else
well,
that those countries have to offer, you'll really be rewarded as far as what you'll see in the end. And I'm going to make three movie recommendations right
okay, let's hear
here
it.
and now, as far as some of the best written movies that I've seen in the past, like maybe 10 years, we'll say. And first one is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was with stars Gary Oldman. It's very old school British and stuff like
I
that.
remember that one. That one's actually
Check it
really good.
check it out if you haven't seen it, everybody. It's amazing. Another one, which is also based off of a true story, The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh yeah,
Whenever
yeah. I remember. I recall seeing that. I didn't see the whole movie. I missed part of it, but that was like I actually like him a lot. Like more
He's a
and more.
fantastic actor.
Yeah.
Fantastic actor. I think of you've probably seen the newer Star Trek movies, right? So when he played Khan, whatever, in the last one, he was phenomenal as that.
Yeah, his
He was,
performance was great. The writing, I wasn't so happy with on that show, honestly, but I get it.
yep.
Like my
But
my
his
my
performance was better than the writing.
yeah,
Let's face
my
it.
my biggest pet peeve with the new Star Trek stuff, and that includes Discovery as well as the Kelvin timeline movie, is what they did to the creature redesign, like redesigning the look of the Klingons, the Andorians, the Altarians. They all look really, really bad. These were all established aliens that looked really believable. For example, the Altarians. Sure, they looked cheesy in the original series. By the time Enterprise was on TV, they had those dialed in, the same look, but it looked realistic with the antennas moving and all that, and the blue skin tone was kind of looked believable even on HD cameras and all that. So, and
Yeah.
then they kind of redesigned them, and now they look like cheap rubber masky. And you can tell all the creatures were designed by the same guy. Like it's the same style, all the creature, and like that creature redesign, the guy that did the redesign should be fired, and the guy that approved the redesign should be fired as well.
Yeah.
Because Discoveries has way too many executive producers anyway. It's probably the only show that has more executive producers than actors.
It's pathetic when shows turn into that. And with that, I'm going to make my final suggestion, which is if you haven't seen it, check out Baby Driver. One of the best movies that came out in the past couple of years from the same writer, Edgar Wright, that came out with Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, World's End. And it is basically, the way I look at that movie is it is an action movie musical. And you might say,
Yeah.
I don't want to think of a musical or anything like that, but it's not. It is all the scenes are very carefully choreographed to like classic rock and
Yeah.
stuff like
No,
that.
it's a really good movie. I can second that
Yeah,
recommendation for sure.
so that there you go. I've said my piece as far as that's concerned. And yeah, I really wish that I could make a recommendation like that for anything that's been American written or Canadian written, for that matter. It's been a while since I've seen anything that has really struck me as great from either country. Schitt's Creek is a great example of good comedy from Canada,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But and the only other Canadian movie, which, I mean, let's face it, Canadian movies don't get a lot of play. The only other one that I can think of that was fantastic to watch, which came out quite a while ago now. It's a movie called, I think it was called 1 Week, with Joshua Jackson. How he travels all across the country after he gets his cancer diagnosis,
Right.
and just all the things that he goes through with it and stuff like that. Fantastic watch. and certainly, one that flew under the radar as far as what the
Okay.
majority of people have
Then
seen.
I'm gonna mention one, and then we'll close the show out because this is a good one. Like because it's a cross-border Canadian American kind of thing.
Yeah, hit me with
Canadian
it.
bacon.
Yeah, Canadian bacon's
You
great, man.
you have to kind of have that one. That is one that is like a must-have seen, just like Blazing Saddles. Those
Oh
two
yeah, yeah,
movies are
totally.
two definitely must-have scenes in your repertoire. If you haven't seen them, go out and see them. Right after you
I agree,
subscribe
man.
to our channel and like it and share it and all that crap, so we can kind of get more likes. Because we're coming pretty much to the end of the show. And Steve, you hang on after I kind of close the show for a second here.
Yeah, no
And
worries, man.
yeah, you also, it's going to get interesting. I'm not exactly sure what next week is going to look like, but it'll be interesting because I'll probably be doing it from my laptop and all that.